Our Brothers, a candid conversation on Black men's health. We're in the beautiful Lewis Stokes Health Sciences Library on the campus of Howard University, and I am your host, Dr. Reed Tuckson. Black men suffer worse health outcomes than any other racial group in America, thus, sadly, also resulting in them having the lowest life expectancy and the highest rates for many diseases. This special invites Black men to have a very lively and candid conversation about their responsibility for every aspect of their health. Today, we will be addressing issues that Black men don't often discuss, like mental health, aging, and their trust in the healthcare system. And as you can see, I'm having this conversation with a group of very distinguished Black men. Mike Smith, Willie Lloyd Reeves, Presley Nelson, Reverend Norman Nixon, William Battle, and Leon Gooden. Gentlemen, thank you so much in advance for participating in what I know will be an informative and quite possibly a life-changing conversation. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A candid conversation on Black men's health wouldn't be responsible and couldn't be complete without the engagement of some of the most brilliant healthcare experts in our community. I am pleased to welcome Dr. Ivan Walks and Dr. Oladuni Filani to weigh in on this conversation. Thank you. Brothers, let's kick off this conversation by talking about mental health. To begin, let's talk about talking about it. The issue, obviously, is that Black men seem to have such a difficult time talking about mental illness. And I'm wondering, why is that?
I think one of the reasons is that the Black community has had a stigma about mental health. Many of times as we grew up, many of our relatives would say, instead of going to get professional help, I ain't crazy, and I need to, so we needed to make sure that we take advantage of mental health opportunities and become more aware of the professionals that can help us and get the service we need.
Mental illness is, like Willie said, has always been a stigma with us. And seeing an expert to have that discussion was something that we typically didn't do. Mm-hmm. We talked to our boys, our friends, in the barbershop, play ball, we worked through it, but we didn't deal with the essence of what our problems were. And we're seeing the results of that today.
Mm. When you are going around the community and you see a brother that seems to be having trouble, how do you know? I mean, what are the danger signs that gives you a sense that something seems to be going wrong?
I mean, you can read body language, a lot of the nonverbals tell a lot, all right? Whether they're facial features, but sometimes you can just feel the energy in the room, and a lot of times we want to deal with everything within and not speak about it because we're told that it's weak.
That issue of we think that we're weak, I mean, what's that about historically? Where does that come from?
I remember as a kid, if you're walking down the street and there's a bunch of guys at the end of the block you didn't know, you had to appear strong. Mm-hmm. Because if you didn't, you might get jumped. Right. So we don't express our weaknesses. We want to appear strong. Inside, it might be a different story.
Right. This idea of being and feeling strong, let me come to you in the back there. What if someone was to pull you over and say something to you? What if your wife was to say, I'm noticing something about you? How do we react?
Well, I think first and foremost, I believe in meeting people where they are, to be frank with you, and being able to accept the reality that behaviors or something of that nature, someone be noticing behaviors or something of that nature. But when we had a conversation earlier, the thing about this mental health is it's just something that you, outside of a trained eye, it's just not something that you see. It can just show up outside of a trained eye. And but the willingness to be open and the willingness to kind of meet people where they are is a factor.
So let's say that your observation of people that you know, and you see that somebody seems to be struggling, however you can sort of recognize that the energy in the room, something's wrong, they seem depressed, they seem preoccupied. What is our responsibility to our brother. When we see that, do we have an obligation to engage? If so, how do you do that?
Well, I think we need to be careful about how we engage, but I think we do have an obligation to engage. But we also need to make sure that you have built that relationship that the brother is going to be acceptable to what you are trying to get over to him, and make sure that he feels that you're really trying to benefit him and not trying to hurt him. Because once again, as we said, we've got that image that we've got to stay strong. And I think it's been built throughout our families and our family structure. So we're not always amenable to having someone give us the advice that we need.
Are any of you raising kids today, kids or grandkids, any of you?
Yep.
You are. So what would you say to your son about how they should approach this kind of thing? If they're having issues, are you willing or able to have that kind of conversation with them?
Well, I have a young daughter, very young daughter, she'll be 4 soon. But at an early age, we've taught her to use your emotions, express things, and it's a safe space. We have to create that safe space because that safe space builds trust. And I think sometimes with our boys or our people, there's not that safe space. And we generalize talking rather than talk from experience.
That's a great point. I certainly wonder and worry about some of the kids that are being exposed to so much violence in our community. That's just such a big issue. How do you all as men sit down and talk to young men about their anxiety, their fears, and how they either act out or how they react when they are under pressure?
Yeah, well, one of the things I would say is that admittedly, we as older men, we have failed in some ways in terms of establishing relationships and bonds with these young people. And whereas we didn't have all the access to social media and television and all that sort of stuff, you had to talk. You sat at the table and had dinner and had conversation. We failed our young people in that degree. And so you have to regain their trust. They have to believe in you to even listen to you nowadays.
It's back to the same sort of point you made earlier, and that is the sense that you can't just go up to someone and just say out of the blue, hey, I think you're having trouble, can I help you? You have to take time to establish that relationship. And you're saying that relationship needs to be established, even long before problems exist, so that we begin to have a bonding with other young black men. Is that what the point that you're making?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw somebody wanted to respond.
Yeah, I actually wanted to add to that, in addition to what he's sharing. I think self-disclosure is important. I think it's important that I have a 13-year-old grandson, and it's important to my grandson to know, hey, look, I haven't done all things right, and I've had these kind of issues and concerns and whatnot. And I think that kind of conversation kind of opens up his mind to understanding, look, Grandpa, he's had some issues and whatnot, what have you. So he's you know how they see a grandparent or a mother, father, but he's open to what, things we have to share, and that kind of builds a relationship, sort of, But I wholeheartedly agree with what you're sharing in terms of, early on and being able to kind of engage that conversation.
I have grandchildren as well, grandsons, and I have said the same thing to them. I have said to them, I want you to know that at 3 a.m, if you're feeling concerned and you're upset and you feel like there's nowhere to go, my phone is always open and I'm ready to be there for you. And I've been saying this to them for a long time. Well, what if you decide now that, maybe somebody needs some professional help? Are we in our community aware of our resources? Where do you go to refer someone to help if in fact you are concerned that it's beyond your ability to talk and counsel with them?
Like I had a family member that needed some help, and I tried to talk to the parents, but the parents were in denial. And you got to get the parents to be able to accept it, because if the parents don't accept it, the person going to be in denial, not going to get the help that they need.
So it really comes back to this is a family affair in some ways. And we have to create families that are strong, families that are willing to take the time to listen and engage, and then be able to refer.
Well, I think to what he was just saying is that sometimes, even the parents don't know what to do, right? Or they're afraid to actually talk to a professional because they don't want to be judged or look at less than. And honestly, therapy is what it is. It's therapy. It's a safe space, but we're encouraged not to speak out about these things at all.
Well, let me turn to our doctors here, our physicians. And Dr. Walks, you are a prominent psychiatrist in our community. What do you say to these good men who wondering, families that don't know where to turn, brothers who want to help but may not be sure where to go?
I would say, first of all, thank you all for having the conversation. Let's start there. We sometimes think that it has to be an either or an or, right? Well, either we got to, pray about it or we got to go get therapy. I pray about it and get therapy. I think we don't have to throw anything away. There's a lot of richness in our community about how we care about each other, how we feel about each other, and we can keep all of that. Right. And then normalize this, right? Say, well, I don't want to go for therapy. Oh, really? You go for physical therapy, you pull a muscle, the doctor says, here, take a pill and go for physical therapy. We have to understand that this is another part of our healthcare system. And this whole thing about, well, when it gets bad, then we'll get some help. Don't do that with your blood pressure, because when it gets bad is when you're having a stroke, right? Don't do that with your diabetes, because when it gets bad is when your kidneys are failing and you're on the ground, right? So I think the opportunity is there for us to normalize conversations about health, including behavioral health and mental health, including all the different kinds of therapy, whether it's a dietitian or a counselor. This is an opportunity for us to say, you know what? Our health matters. All of it matters. My blood pressure matters. My level of anxiety matters. All of it. So my advice would be, don't throw anything out that we've always had, that we've always used, that has helped us. Add this to that, and then normalize it in a way that it just feels ordinary. Ordinary for us to do it.
Dr. Fulani, what struck you the most as you heard our brothers having this conversation? You are, seeing patients every day. What got your attention?
So, just like Dr. Walk said, I really appreciate the fact that we're having this conversation and that you guys are talking about it. One of the things that was mentioned by a couple of people, and you as well, is your grandson. The generational thought flow when it comes to health, especially mental health. That one of the things I want to bring out is sometimes we actually don't know our family history, or we don't talk about our family history. And that could be a big issue. But if, as a grandfather, as a father, you make it accessible to the people, to the children and to your grandchildren, it's easier for them to know that, okay, it's all right for me to talk about how I feel or to talk about the issues I'm having rather than lashing out. Because sometimes I know earlier they talked about when you observe something. The problem we're having nowadays is that people are isolated. There's so much you can do. You can sit down in your home and not go out, and everything is brought to you. And that isolation makes it even more challenging. Gone are the days that people hang out in a barbershop, for example. People set up appointments, show up, do it, and you're out. And so those opportunities are not even there nowadays with social media. And so being able to have this conversation and having this conversation with friends and those that are around you is very important. And lastly, don't laugh when someone expresses how they feel, because sometimes that's a problem. If I'm being vulnerable to you and the first thing you do is and you laugh, I'm shutting down. I'm not telling you anything else. And there's a tendency that somebody's defense mechanism may be laughter because they don't know what to tell you. And that's a bad response to someone who's struggling, because once you laugh, they're not going to say anything anymore.
Dr. Walks, this is a key point, is that sometimes we don't help others because we're just not sure what to do. As you teach us and advise us, what do you say to a loved one who is concerned, but how can I be positively engaged and help resolve the situation?
Dr. Tuckson, a couple of things come to mind. One is when you said to your grandsons, my phone is on all the time. I'm always available. It's important to let those we care about know that we're going to be available. And then one of the brothers here talked about this need for us to let people know we care about them, right? I am much more likely to come and talk to you if I know that if I know that laughter is your defense mechanism already, maybe I know more about you. And so you and I can connect at a different level. So I think this notion of I can be strong and I can be available. I can be strong and I can be strong for you. Sometimes that strength that we think separates us can be a strength that allows someone to lean on us because they know we can take it and they know that we will love them despite whatever they're bringing our way.
Unconditional love.
I mean,
Unconditional love for our people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, if, Dr. Walsh, if we go to our once-a-year checkup with our family physician, our general practitioner, and we have some psychological issues, some mental health challenges, what do we say to our primary care doctor about how, so that they will understand something about, have a clue that something's going on in their lives?
So let me start with this. A lot of things we can do at home, right? Those little home blood pressure cuffs that they sell at wherever, CVS, Walmart, Walgreens, they're also online. You can find mental health screenings. You can look at why I feel kind of, I don't want to talk to anybody yet, but let me go online and take a screening about anxiety, about depression, so I can tell, you know what, I'm scoring 9 out of 10 on this. This is something I need to talk to somebody about. The other thing to your question, Dr. Tuckson, I know that you're a doc and I'm a doc, but if your doc doesn't ask you, if you are the one that has to raise this with your doc, there's another doc down the street.
Very true.
One of our guests wants to make a comment.
Yeah, that was a key point that I think we need to be cognizant of. We need to communicate with our medical professionals. And a lot of times we don't know how to do that. And it's important that we understand.
Well, let me make sure that is so important. So we have a primary care doctor. I want him to respond. That was great.
I kind of figured that was coming to me. So as part of your annual physical visit, there's a screening that is done. So there are two parts to what I'm about to say. A lot of times that screening could be done by the person who's checking you in. Right. A lot of times what I'm finding is that men say no, or the answer to the question is no, I'm okay. But until I ask, are you really okay? It's very important to know that me asking that question is not because I want to check the box that you've answered the question so that it fulfills some sort of requirement that my conscience is clear that I asked you, but that I show that as a primary care physician, I do care about your health and allow you to express yourself. I can't tell you the number of times that the conversation is completely different. It's like we're now just starting the visit because there's a lot that starts to get unpacked during that process. So as part of your annual screening, you should, Dr. Walsh talks about screening for depression and anxiety. Those two things should be part of it. And if it is not, find yourself another doctor.
Our conversation is just getting started, and we'll be right back after a short break.